What's up YouTube, I'm Guy, and today on the JustBlueFish channel we are going to check out a Seiko Field Watch. We're looking at the SARG005, which is a fantastic watch and I'm really glad to bring it to review today. A big thank you to the viewer that loaned this to me. Without you guys that loan me watches on a routine basis, this channel would definitely not succeed like it has been. I can't do it without you guys, so thank you very much for the loan on this watch. Now, the SARG005 today that we're looking at, it's a very handsome field watch. It features a cream-colored, or what I would almost describe as a khaki-colored field dial. Generally speaking, I always get black field watches, black-dialed field watches, but this is a variation from that, and I do like it. I would prefer black, generally. That's my personal tastes. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of people out there that I think are going to probably enjoy this one maybe even more because they like the variation in color in their collections. Now this watch does compare, in my opinion, very closely to another Seiko quote-unquote field watch, the SARB017 Alpinist, which is of course the hugely popular green dial, gold indice, I don't know, field watch, again, for lack of a better term. Super popular. I've reviewed it in the past, and I know most of you guys really love that watch. Now, something's kind of happened to me over the course of the last, I don't know, 6 months to a year. Since I've reviewed that watch, I've kind of, how would I describe it? You know when you say, like, something's grown on you? I don't know, what's the opposite of that? Something's grown off of me? I'm not going to say I don't like the Alpinist, but as time progressed, I definitely like it less than I used to. It is, of course, a very high-quality watch, as are basically all of the watches in that SAR series of Seiko watches, whether it's an SARB or an SARG. They're all very high quality for the sort of mid-range Seiko, you know, quote-unquote affordable watches, sub-$500 watches generally. It's a very high-quality watch, but that gold dial, or I'm sorry, that green dial with the gold indices, I just don't see a lot of versatility there. And for me, in my, you know, personal style, I just can't see the opportunity to want to wear a watch like that very often. So if I was going to be looking at one of these watches from Seiko, sort of a field watch, most notably, probably the biggest direct comparison between those two watches is a watch with an internal rotating compass bezel, I would probably give this SARG005 or one of its cousins with a different color variation a much closer look than I would that Alpinist. You know, I know people are gonna probably get their feathers ruffled by me saying that my appreciation for the Alpinist has been waning over the past several months, but I just keep seeing it posted online and everybody raves about it. And I gotta be honest, I don't know, I don't think it's all that. I did, you know, during my review say that it was a high quality watch and a very handsome and attractive watch. It is handsome and attractive, but the focus of when you might want to put that into rotation just seems so narrow for me in my personal style that, again, I'm just sort of, my appreciation for it has just declined since that review video. On the other hand, having this watch in for a little while now, I can say that, yeah, if I was looking for something like that, in particular with that complication or feature with the internal bezel, compass bezel, I'd probably go with this one, or possibly one of the black dial variations, just because I prefer black generally. So yeah, this particular SARG005. It is again the cream colored dial, or I think it's more of a khaki color. It is very handsome. It's got a pretty standard field watch layout. You know, you have your Arabic numerals. You know, it does have that field watch aesthetic a little bit more than the Alpinist does, in fact. Very nice. Of course, basic specifications on that watch. You guys are probably going to want to get that out of the way real quick. It has a 40mm case diameter, although, well, that's what the specs are listed on it online. On my calipers, when I measure it, it's maybe a hair bigger. I think it's closer to 41mm if I'm trying to, you know, measure it myself in my studio here. But, you know, regardless, it's advertised as 40mm. It has 20mm lug width, which is nice, and the thickness is relatively reasonable at about 12mm. Not super thick at all. The lug-to-lug from the top of the case to the bottom of the case, or the watch's wingspan, comes in at about 48 to 49mm. Now, MSRP on this watch, as most of the watches in the SAR series, whether it's an SARB or an SARG, it's under $500. It comes in at about $449 if I'm not mistaken, and of course you can find it online for cheaper than that, maybe $375 to $425 in that price range. When I was looking around online for it though, I did notice something interesting. It is not super available. A lot of the places that I look, I don't see them having it in stock at all. I don't know if it's maybe on the chopping block about to get discontinued, or maybe it's just a lull in production at this time of year with Seiko. I can't say for sure, but because the availability seems to be a little bit limited right now as of, December 2017, if you're looking for one of these, I might consider jumping on it sooner than later, I guess I should say, because in the past, I don't know, this past year anyway, 6 months or so, Seiko has discontinued some pretty nice watches, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if they went ahead and discontinued this watch. So keep that in mind. Now, other specifications about this watch. It runs the SARG005 23 joule automatic movement. It's, of course, a great movement from Seiko. That movement runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It's got a 50-hour power reserve. It is hand winding and hacking, and it has an accuracy range of minus 15 seconds per day to plus 25 seconds per day. Now, if we jump in here and take a look at this watch, first thing to probably note is while it is, a 40mm watch, which is a little bit bigger than that Alpinist watch, so keep that in mind if you're thinking of comparing this to the Alpinist. One reason why you might go with the Alpinist is because it's a little bit smaller in case diameter and a little bit shorter in lug to lug, about 1 to 2 millimeters in either dimension. But the case, proportions or dimensions, and the overall quality and finishing on this is excellent. The sides of the case feature, several different, I don't know what you would call them, bevels or facets. It's a combination of brushed and polished finishes on the sides, and it does look really nice. On the 3 o'clock side of the case, of course, we have some not overly pronounced, but certainly noticeable crown guards surrounding the Seiko S signed crown. And then below that crown, we have the second crown, which is what we use to rotate the internal compass bezel. Now, the dial and the handset of this watch is probably the thing that draws me to it the most. I'm, again, a big fan of field watches, and the Arabic numerals 1 through 12 with an inner ring for the military time 13 through 24 are printed on this dial. Just below that we have an applied Seiko logo, and towards the 6 o'clock position, of course, we have the designation of automatic and 23 joules. At the 3 o'clock position of the dial, it features a date complication, and that date complication is black text on a white date dial, or I guess a date dial, surrounded with a black frame or outline. The whole presentation is very typical of a field watch, and it looks fantastic. Of course, there's an inner chapter ring with your hash marks or your graduations for each second, with a number of small graduations for the fractions or milliseconds. Then, of course, there is the loomed pips around the chapter ring there, with triangles at the 12, 6, 3, and 9, and then small squares at the other indexes or the other hour markers. The other big notable thing about this dial is, of course, that external dial, or I'm sorry, not external, it's internal, but on the outer edge of the chapter ring, that internal rotating compass bezel. Now, that's not a feature that I'm personally ever going to find particularly useful in any watch. I have no use for it at all, but it is kind of an interesting complication that you don't see in many watches, so people are maybe going to enjoy just having something a little bit different in their collection, and I get that. But that bezel is controlled by that little crown at the 4 o'clock position. It's, super easy to manipulate. You spin it around to adjust the position of the bezel, and I suppose there's probably plenty of instructions online on how you would use that in order to find your orientation, or perhaps with map reading. Again, no particular use for me, but you know, if you like that sort of thing, it's cool, I guess. The rear of the case has an exhibition case back window, of course, showing you that 6R15 movement. The 6R15 movement isn't particularly decorated, you know, it's not dressed up or anything, but I guess, you know, there's no problem with having the exhibition window there. It's still an interesting thing to look at, and it's kind of fun to show your friends or family, anybody that has never seen an automatic or a mechanical watch. You can kind of pull it off the wrist, and it's, at a minimum, a conversation starter, I suppose. I probably didn't mention it, but I couldn't find out exactly. Is the crystal on this mineral crystal? Well, technically Seiko's HDR crystal, or is it a sapphire crystal? I've seen it listed in multiple places as being either or. If you go to different retailers' websites, some list it as a HDR crystal, and others list it as a sapphire crystal. I'm probably going to go out on a limb here and guess that it's sapphire, because it's relatively common for Seiko to put sapphire crystals in these types of watches, in the watches that are in the SAR series of watches, whether it's an SARB or an SARG. I don't know for sure. I couldn't find a definitive answer on that one way or the other, but my guess would be that the crystal over the dial is probably sapphire. Now, this watch that's on loan from the viewer that sent it to me, it's wearing a Seiko bracelet. The bracelet that it's on is pretty nice. It's very similar to other bracelets, like the bracelet that came on the SARB033 that I have. The really downside of this bracelet is that the clasp only has a couple of micro adjustment holes, just 2, so I'm gonna guess that finding a proper fit might be a little bit of a challenge for you, as I have found with these specific types of bracelets. But the links are all solid and they're very nice. Overall, it's, you know, quite a nice bracelet, particularly at the price point. I have no complaints with the overall quality and construction of the bracelet. I just don't love that the clasp on the bracelet only has the limited 2 micro adjustment holes. The swing arm on the bracelet, though, is a nice machined, it's not a simple thin stamped steel swing arm. It's a nice machined swing arm. Each of the blades are you know, of a much higher quality material than you might find on some of the ultra affordable or quote-unquote lower-end Seiko watches. I'll go ahead and roll in a video of the Lume. Of course, this watch features Seiko's Lume Bright Lume. It's not super generously applied. It's just like the small little markers around the chapter ring, as well as the lume on the handset. Being as it is Lume Bright, it is very bright and long-lasting, but because of the limited application of it, it is slightly underwhelming for a Seiko watch, but it's still pretty good if I'm being honest. Now, because this is a hand-winding movement, of course, you know, first things first, you can pull the crown out and hack the movement and adjust the hour and the minute hands, set your time. That's all very easy. It works quite well, and pushing it into the second position allows you to quick set the date, which for, you know, most of Seiko's, even their most affordable movements, that's how they all function. With the exception of the very lower end 7S26 movements, they don't hack when you pull the crown all the way out. Hand winding the 6R15 movement, you know, that works great. This doesn't have a screw down crown, unfortunately, which is a feature that the Alpinist, the SARB017, does have, but notwithstanding that, still the crown is, you know, sized appropriately. It features plenty of traction or knurling. You get a good grip on it. It's easy to manipulate, and again, hand winding the movement is very nice. It's smooth. It's, you know, typical Seiko. Probably, you know, not something that I would compare to a Rolex as far as, you know, that's concerned, of course, but we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars of difference. But, you know, compares very similarly to the ETA movement-based watches that I've had in the past, and, you know, no complaints with that either. So yeah, there's a lot to like about this SARG033 Seiko Field Watch, I guess is what, you know, what I would call it. Again, the compass, the internal compass bezel, that's a little atypical for a typical, you know, for a standard field watch. But yeah, definitely still falls into the field watch category, and I like this watch quite a bit. Again, if I was going to be purchasing one of Seiko's field watches, and if I had it narrowed down to the Alpinist and this, I'm probably going to lean towards this, or one of the black dialed variations, just because of the added versatility. But yeah, overall, an excellent watch. Very happy to have had the opportunity to review it here for you guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please like this video, and if you're not a subscriber, do please subscribe to the channel. I try to come out with new review content on, at a minimum, a weekly basis, if not more often. So yeah, I appreciate you guys tuning in. And, if there's anyone else out there that wants to loan me watches or help support the channel, there's a list of ways that you can get in touch with me and support the channel in the notes or the description of this video and every single video that I produce. So please do check that out as well. Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate everything that you guys do for me, and we will be back later on this week with another video. Bye now.